recording here. All right, so it looks like so far we have mostly QA technical folks in the room. We have DevOps, QA, so that's good. Sounds like what I was expecting, but just wanted to make sure. So I'll keep the participant and also a little bit of the chat open, but I'll try not to get too distracted by the chat. You guys can go ahead and have conversation going on the chat. But today I wanted to share about the impact of artificial intelligence on QA automation. So, and I'm recording it, so I think Scott will be good. All right, so this slide is a little bit about me. This is not my favorite slide really, it's kind of like difficult to talk about yourself, right? But I wear many hat, I'm an author, speaker, podcast host, social entrepreneur, woman confidence coach. But I think the title that is really appropriate for today's conversation is really software quality leader and agile scrum coach. I'm also a mom. So I'm standing because I'm tired of sitting at my desk for days, right? So I will be moving around a little bit because I'm used to when I do presentations stand up. So it's just kind of like difficult these days when you're presenting remotely and you kind of like bound to your seat. So I have been in software development, software testing for the past 16 years. I have mostly been a software manual, then I moved into automation. But for the last 10 to 12 years, I've been leading a QA team through QA automation transformation and various industry using smarter tools, solid process, and with smart team. So let me see. Okay, and so that's really about it. I have other venture going on, but I wouldn't bore you with all that. And I'm gonna try to share my social media so you guys can we can stay connected after the talk today. And as far as like the talk, I like talk where question flows in. I'm gonna be glancing into the comment section. If there's a question that is relevant to the slide, I'm gonna jump and answer it. You can definitely stop me at any given time to ask more question. But I wanted to make it more like a conversational style. And definitely, I think the whole presentation might take like 30 to 40 minutes, depending on how much I feel like talking. I've been having a lot of allergy today, so I might be not want to talk too much in case I want to sneeze so bad. So, but we'll have enough time at the end for Q&A. So let's just make sure of that. So briefly, when you think about it, the past 10 years, QA automation tools, QA engineer have had the opportunity to create test automation, but we still lack in efficiency in execution, reusability of the test case, and mostly fast updates. So many manual testing, we realize that manual testing can take so long, and especially when there's a break in the script, and we spend a lot of time maintaining the script. So there's a lot of improvement, for us in regard to Q automation to enable fast error detection. And I'm going to get more into what is really fast error detection as far as what I mean by that. So when we talk about AI, and I have been like a fanatic and evangelist of artificial intelligence, at least since I went to graduate school. And a fun fact, I love machine learning so much that my graduate professor wanted me to go ahead and do a PhD in artificial intelligence. But I was not too keen into that because I was not too much interested into the research part of artificial intelligence. I was more interested in the practicality, like how does AI affect my day-to-day life, or any part of our life. And it was really good to see that, although AI has been really crucial in technology, in the last few years, automation, software automation has been also experimenting with AI and machine learning. So that's the part that I really got excited about it, because I was like, finally, it's now coming to like the field that I love and I'm really passionate about. So a simple concept and definition of what is machine learning is really a pattern recognition technology. So it's really about using pattern to identify by the machine learning algorithm to predict future trends. So there's two things that is important here for our conversation is pattern identification and predicting future trend, because that's going to be really relevant to the QA automation talk that we're going to have today. All right, now to get started, before you can even start leveraging AI in your QA automation, I want us to step back. And this is things that I see a lot of companies miss out is really, you got to have like a QA automation strategy. And I'm like really into strategy because I don't like folks to just get onto automation, because I've seen that so many times that it becomes a real a failure. So you got to determine, out of your QA automation strategy, what is really appropriate, what kind of tools, technology is going to be appropriate for your culture, for the automation implementation that you're trying to do, before you can even go out there and go, find a tools that's going to work, we have, I'm going to get in detail about, the feature of several automation tools here, but a couple of the features that I want to highlight is really the visual validation, test API, and ability to self-auto heal and trying to find duplicate error in your code easily. So you got to make sure that first of all, you need to have an automation strategy, and your automation strategy is not just about your tools. There's so many things that come into play with automation strategy, but the tools is kind of like the one that really really important for most people, right? But I've seen a lot of organizations that I work with where they just jump and go ahead and look for tools, instead of trying to figure out actually for the culture, the quality of the team, the capability of the team, but they go right ahead and look for tools. And I have to say, if you were looking for me to tell you about a specific tool, I am not, I most of my talk is always a tool agnostic, because I believe more into like focusing on the feature, on your process, than actually the tools per se, because once you know exactly what you want, you can find whatever tool that will work for you. All right. So before we can even get to like what is the actual benefits, I believe that there need to be some kind of mindset shift for the QA team, because I was talking to Scott before we even jump on. We were talking about like back in the days, 2000 and how things were happening technology wise. And a lot of us has been into the QA industry for a while, right? So you got to have a mindset shift for your team. Your team need to really, if they're the manual tester, that's fine, but they really need to embrace, learning new technology. They really need to be lifelong learner. And another thing, as at least for me as a QA leader, I want to ensure why, you want to make sure your team buy into your QA automation vision. So what does that mean? Here you are, you saying you want to go into automation. So that's already, okay, if you have a lot of manual tester in your team, that's a really shifted in mindset for them, right? But now on top of that, you're saying you're going to add an AI tools, that's really your wish list. So then people really get into like they're feeling like, okay, what are we trying to do here? Are you trying to replace me with some kind of AI tool now to do my job? I know a couple of years when I was trying to do this, I had to really get to my team and explain to them that, I'm really trying to just make sure that we become more efficient in what we do, and we spend less time, chasing unnecessary bug or doing a lot of unnecessary maintenance of the script. So you really have to like explain, and a lot of time, this is important because I always believe in the people. You got to power the people with the right technology. So you got to make sure that the people, your QA team, really understand the reason why you go in this route, And the last thing is you have to equip your QA team with necessary training, right? So, and the training cannot be the same for everybody, because one of the mistakes that we usually make is we just slap in like one training for everybody. that cannot be the same. You might have people in your team that never code before, so maybe now they need to get into like some minimum code, you know, because they're going to be looking at code at some point, right, in this automation or transformation. So maybe they need to understand some minimal code. Some other might already be coding before, but now they need to change the language that they're coding, or some other just need a little bit more understanding of what is even automation. You know, is it the same mindset that I'm using when I'm testing manually with automation? So as a leader of the team, you have to equip your team to the level of understanding at each level, and the capability. All right, now we're gonna get into like the benefits of AI-based tool, and there's so many benefits. But in this talk, I'm focusing on three specific one, because I feel like those three specific one give you the most, I'm gonna say, return on your investment. And we're gonna talk about ROI at the end of this presentation as well. But visual testing is one that I have been using a lot, and I've heard that it has been super helpful for team in terms of like verifying. So what is visual testing? It's this visual testing validation is the kind of testing that allow you to test any visual change that happened in your application. You know, as a manual tester with your naked eyes, I can guarantee you that there's so many things that you can miss easily from the UI perspective. So visual bug are usually rendering issue. And so because of the AI automation testing, you are able to rapidly make change and adapt to your application if there's any visual change. You know, instead of and you probably have seen it, a lot of application will just make change, and the QA person, you struggling between, okay, I'm gonna run my automation, I'm gonna make sure my functional tests work, but you end up with like a very minor bug that is on the UI. So visual validation, visual testing allow you to catch those, you know. And visual validation also work with application that have constant change and a lot of formatting that is happening on the front UI specifically. I'm gonna pause and see if there's any question. Just I'm looking at the chat. I hope I have the right chat. So if there's not any question, I'll keep going. Now, the next one that I wanted to get into a little bit is test API. Not everybody, you know, will have to do API testing. You know, I've throughout my career, I've only maybe done test API like 3 or 4 times, really, you know, in depth. It's just depend on your application. But one of the cool thing is AI enabled API testing provide a leap forward in productivity and efficiency, which is really the reason why we're trying to use AI. So you can capture all your step in just one set with an AI-enabled tools. Then you can define kind of like a collection in a smart template, and you can share the template across a body of testers. So it allow you to have like reusability of your API test, and it help you manage all your API tests in kind of like a very nice inventory system. So user can benefit by adding machine learning to automate the API test creation, and that bring you consistency and also coverage for all your effort in your API testing. So a couple of tools out there are allowing that right now, you know, but again, this is something that, you know, AI based tools are giving you the opportunity with testing API. Now, this is my favorite of all of them. Self-healing, or auto-healing we call it, is really the ability to detect automatically a break of a break in the software in your test and fix it without human intervention. Okay, so what does that mean actually? You have, let's say, over 2,000 test cases that you run, and the developer drop a code. There's some change that happened, right? Before you can even go figure out what are those change in all your tests, self-auto healing will detect those change, and either will ask you, do you want to accept those change? Yes. Or will accept those change for you automatically, all depending on how you set up your application. And self-auto-healing is used to help adapt to very minor change, so your tests keep working. You know, you don't get like a gazillion of failure and then you got to go through each of them and look them individually, but it automatically just, you know, heal from the change that just happened in the application. And then you as a tester can determine, okay, this is a bug because I was not expecting it, but this is a real scenario that I'm expecting. So then your test automatically changes. So every time you run a test, basically the way it works is it's interacting with various elements. So it collect all the element attribute that is user, and then next time you try to track them over time. So what are those elements? It could be text, it could be CSS class change, it could be data, it could be other information like location and size that is on the page. So any test step that interact with those elements, okay. So any test step that interact with an element on the page can be auto heal. Okay. And this is really a game changer. If you have ever used this, at least I've used this a couple of times in several projects, and it has been a game changer in maintaining your test case. Because one of the biggest the biggest challenge that we have as a automation engineer is not really, it's part of like, okay, you create the automation, but it's really the maintenance part of it. So if we can have a little bit of technology or some kind of feature, you know, that can help in maintaining, I'm all here for it, and I love it. All right, I want to spend some time, you know, and talk about, you know, successful QA automation transformation case study that I've been involved in. You know, I've had at least the opportunity to be involved in like 3 huge QA transformation, and I like to call it QA transformation because we take the team from like a manual landfill of test cases, and then you bring them into like automation, and the entire organization is really getting the value of it. But it doesn't really happen just with the QA team. It happened with like an entire team, you know, entire agile team, entire organization. So from the mindset of the team to like the availability, so and then the tools that we use and how they actually gain from it and the result of it. So that's what I want to cover in the next couple of minutes now. All right, so because I cannot write everything on my slide here, I'm gonna talk through the slide, but these are the highlight. So this is a agile team. You know, this is a very high performing agile team. They have been working together for the past 9 to 10 months, and they have been working together for the past 9 to 10 months, working on a major project, a new website application that they launched, a brand new website that they're launching. So they're working on new feature for the past 9 months. So now after 9 to 10, actually 10 months, they have, okay, I'm trying to add folks. They have all the application is ready, it's live, everybody's happy, we all excited, we all like do a huge sign of relief. And then now we like in phase 2, right? So phase 2, there are a backlog of item ready and available for the team to start going back and implementing. But one of the challenge that the team is facing that is in front of us is really to make sure that all the to make sure I'm getting an echo, so to make sure that all the application that it's already available for the user, you know, for the end user, do not break, you know. So that's the one of the main challenge, you know, because the end user doesn't really care about all the new stuff that you want to do until it's done, but they only care about really the new they care about what is already working for them until they get it. So now we want to make sure that we don't break anything that is already working. So as a QA leader, I'm facing with that challenge, and what are we gonna do? I only have one QA person that have been working the past 9 months on this project, writing all test cases, over 1,000 test cases, actually 1,100 test cases. He has been literally writing in a manual environment that we keep in Azure DevOps. So now we are faced with what are we gonna do? And on a regular basis, all these test cases take him about, you know, 3 to 4 days to execute. But if it's really fast, because he has tested them so many times, it can take him 2 to 3 days. So 2 to 3 days is a really good best case scenario. So for any code drop that happened from a dev perspective, QA take 2 to 3 days, 3 days on average, to get them a thumbs up, thumbs down, and tell them, this is good, and they can go to the next environment, which is like a stage, pre-production. So this is what we're facing. So it's kind of like, okay, every time we do a code change, we have 3 days to respond. So what we did was we went out on the marketplace and started looking for different tools that we can use to automate. This QA engineer happen not to have any coding experience, so they don't have any coding experience. Their only experience is really manual execution, which is not a problem, but they also have a lot of subject matter expertise in the application at this time, because they've been working on the app for almost 10 months now, right? So this was a good challenge. We went out, started looking for different tools, and then we stop and pick an AI-based tool. And the reason why we pick an AI-based tool is really all the benefits that I mentioned in the previous slide. So now it's like, okay, what are we gonna do? We have this QA engineer. He's gonna start. So we spoke with the team, explained to them, demo this application, these tools to them, and tell them this is no. Okay, if you can give me. Originally, I just asked for like, give me 1 or 2 sprint cycle, at the beginning of your sprint, right? Sprint 0, sprint 1 or 2, give me one of those sprint, and just make sure that this QA person is not creating any new test cases or chasing any bug or doing any testing activity. But I want them to really focus on building this whole regression suite in this AI-based tool that we have. So, I mean, you guys know how it works in an agile team. You require a lot of explanation and buying and understanding why, somebody's going to be removed totally from the entire day-to-day work and focusing on just writing automation test cases. But I made sure that I talk about the return on investment, which we're going to talk about in this talk at the end. So we did get the 3 to 4 weeks for him to go about. But originally, we didn't even know. I just knew that, this is the maximum that I can ask for, because I mean, you can't just sit there and ask for like, give me 4 sprint. That's a lot of time, right? But I was like, give me two sprint. I think 2 sprint, we can try to see what we can do. And with 2 sprint, within 3 to 4 weeks, he was able to, with no prior coding experience, with no training to this new application, new tools, he was able to self-train himself, and be able to build on the entire regression suite of 1,000 test cases, and that was a really good thing. And then as soon as those got built, we were able to execute those over 1,000 test cases. It took like maximum 30 minutes to just run it in one environment and run it on multiple browsers as well too, which was not the case before. So that's a huge, so we went from like 3 days minimum to maximum 30 minutes running the same regression suite. So you can see that there's a lot of gain for the team. We have the ability to have like a fast feedback response, right? Because as soon as you drop a code in QA engineer just run all the regression suite. 30, 45 minutes later, there's a response, there's all the bugs that we found, all the issue, and then they can fix them even within 1 or 2 days or even a day. And then we were able to test in the next environment. So things that we used to take like 7 days for the customer to get a response back on it, and just 1 box to get fixed, now they were able to get like quick response, quick fix back, and quick fast delivery. So I want to pause here and see if there's any question. Okay, I see a comment. 1,000 manual tests in 3 days. Who needs to read people like that? Okay. Oh, like he's already too good. Is that what you're saying, Mike? This was a good QA person, I have to say, But I'm just making the comment. I don't know if that's a question or not. But 3 to 4 days, because I mean, he has been testing this. Just a comment. Okay, cool. He has been testing this for like month, right? So this guy is really good, like star manual QA engineer. So a perfect opportunity for him to step into QA automation and really bring value to the team. All right. Now, way above the number that are typical. Yes, I agree. I agree. But that's why I say the word SMEs, because he was from the beginning with the application, understand the user, really understand the in and out. I mean, when you have like really good QA, they can really embody the application and really, produce a good a good result for you. So I guess I was lucky in that having like a good QA, manual QA person. So leveraging AI tool in your CI/CD. So one of the value of that AI-based tool was also the ability to leverage it in your CI/CD. So you have the ability to test, from test environment, QA environment, to QA, to staging, and then to go in production, the same consistent. So it's really the consistency in execution, because I don't know about you, but my pet peeve as a QA person is really when I test something in QA environment and then now we go to staging, it's a whole another story. We got to do some environmental issue. We got to fix this, all that. So this is also allow it to hook it easily from one environment to another, and you can literally run the same test from QA to staging to pre-production to demo, whatever environment that you have lined up for yourself as part of your CI/CD. So this is really allow the QA, which I call like really get into like this intelligent testing mindset, because now QA is really enjoying I, at least that's what I feel like, QA is really enjoying the testing. We are part of like the whole testing activity. Is no longer like, oh, I just test in QA, it's taking me 7 days, so by the time I get in like staging, I don't even have the energy for it. You really embody and you're part of like the whole experience. It's also enable fast error detection, which I forgot to mention. Now, I want to talk about ROI, because this is something that I I really believe strongly into return on investment for your project, but for your team. But I feel like we never talk about it. We never talk about what is the return on investment. When we're doing automation, everybody just want automation for the sake of, because and when I talk to like client or I talk to like team, I'm always asking them like, why do you want automation? Because like Mike was saying, maybe your QA guy is already good. Why do you want to invest into like tools and then do all this in transformation? We need to know the why and the North Star, right? And then know what return on investment we're really going to bring you. Otherwise, we're never going to know when we get there, pretty much, right? So it's good to talk about what is the pain point and what you're trying to get to, and then what is the arc in between. So the return on investment for your team is really a team that embrace lifelong learning. And this is really important for me, because I make sure that my team that I got around me are folks that I really want to learn and keep learning. People like you guys coming into a talk on a Monday afternoon. Monday is not my favorite day for meeting, but hey, so folks like that are embracing lifelong learning mindset, that are going on their way to learn about new technology. But the return on investment is also on the time spent on test execution, obviously, as you guys saw, right? Because now, so for me as a QA person, instead of me sitting there for like 3-4 days trying to test the whole application, I can do that in less than an hour. So that's really good. Obviously, fast time to market is also there, because everything just become a little bit faster. I don't like the word fast, because people throw word fast out there, fast delivery. I know I use fast enough in my presentation, but I don't use it in the term of like speed. It's really how things get to the market. Now you have the ability to respond quickly to your competitor, to anything that's happening in the marketplace in a very efficient way. Obviously, you get high quality software. That's the whole goal of what we're doing, right? Get high quality software. You get a fast feedback loop to customer. And I love this part, because one of the things that I really talk about is the 360 feedback loop. There's so much to say about creating an application, put it out there, test it all you want. But as long as it has to get into the customer hand for you to really to know if you're getting that value. When we talk about agile mindset, what is the value that you bring into the customer? So the sooner you get to the customer can tell you if that's really what they want, and you get that fast feedback loop back to your team quickly to be able to respond to issue. So it also gives fast response to issue as well. All right, now favorite one that we definitely never address is really the ROI for your team happiness. And we don't talk about a lot of team happiness, especially in technology or in in QA. Everybody, you have to realize that we work together so much. Here is a team that have been working together for the past almost 12 months on a project, and you gotta find a way to really find what makes the team happy. And if I can find a tool out there that can help my team, definitely you better believe that I'm gonna be on it. If this allow cross-functional team involvement, because the same test can be run actually in dev environment, which I didn't talk about, prior to even coming to QA. And then it can also be run, in demo environment. So if you have some kind of product or product owner or BAs that are really prepping for demo for client or customer, depending on how the application is used out there, they can even use those test cases, or they can modify test cases to use for that. So it's almost like QA does one piece of the work and everybody get to enjoy the benefit of it. So it increased the team happiness, and that I can tell you that this is something that we don't measure. I like to talk about metrics a lot, but this is the metrics that I'm really more interested in, because I want my team to be happy. We stay together, we work together for like days, for months. We spend more than like 12 hours of a day together as a team. So we have to be able to make sure that teams are happy. It provides better team engagement, great teamwork and collaboration. Obviously, like I mentioned, everybody can use this application, these tools. And my favorite part is the end. It's really how QA is no longer the bottleneck. Because throughout my career, I've heard more than 50 million times she has done. Okay, I'm looking at it. I'll talk about tools at the end. QA is QA become a fun activity, basically. It's no longer a bottleneck. It's no longer a bottleneck where, okay, we've done. Now developers like, we are done, but QA has not done it. QA has not finished it. So it become super productive. All right, a quick recap, maybe I want to stop here as a question, but my recap, it's really about like, make sure you train your QA to the new QA automation that you want them to leverage, AI-based automation that you want them to leverage. Make sure that your team embrace the benefits of AI-based tools that I share here, visual testing, test API, and the self-auto healing that I talk about. And the goal is really to attain high-quality software, however way we arrive at it. Make sure we can use AI-based tool. I think you guys are most interested in the AI-based tool. I didn't put that slide in there because I don't really want to have too much conversation on like tool specific. Like I told you guys, I'm more into like tool agnostic, but I'm happy to answer a question at the end of the presentation about the tool specifically, if that's an interest for folks as well. Return on investment for the team happiness is also something that we talk about. All right, so now we add question. So I'm gonna go into the comment here and scroll down and see the questions that have been asked. And you can also unmute yourself, right? Scott, people can unmute themselves and ask question live as well. So go ahead. Okay, so I'm reading. Renee said, hello, I came in late. What is the automation tool we are talking about? Or is this in general? And then she has not made a specific tool. Feel like, okay, so I can address, you need to unmute people to hear them. Oh, okay. All right, so do I unmute everybody? If you have a question, maybe, or maybe just me. Do you want to be unmute, Mike? And then we can ask, you can just, is there a way I can, okay, unmute all, okay. Allow participant to mute themselves. Okay, I found it. All right, now you can unmute yourself and ask question. Mike, you have a question?
I just wanted to comment that, I think I kind of gathered this from your attitude. I think QA, since Agile became our kind of de rigueur way of doing business, is really the funnest place to be. I think there's so many, you're not kind of bounded by what you can try and what you can experiment with. And if you don't allow your team to do that, I really appreciate you saying, how important it is to have a team that's happy and enjoying what they're doing, because QA can get very drudgery when you're doing, like that guy doing 1,000 cases every 3 days. When he's doing that over and over and over, it gets to be like working on the assembly line and just putting a door on a car and watching it go by, and putting 100 doors on a car every day. And it's really, really important to keep your people excited about what they're doing. And it should be easy in this environment, in the QA world. It really should. And if we're not allowing people to grow like that, it's kind of our own fault.
Right. Yeah, is that Mike, right? So yeah, I totally agree with you. And you said something and then you brought some other thought that I forgot now. No, I think when you were talking about assembly line, this is so interesting because I've worked in team where people ask me like, why are you in QA? Isn't that boring? You're doing the same thing over and over again. So it's only really us QA, I want to say geek, that really understand why we do the same thing over and over again, but because every time, you look at something, you find a different way to approach it, you find a different bug, you find a different way to test it, you come up with a different scenario. So you can go on and on. So when I hear, and usually when I interview folks, I ask them the question as well. And based on the answer that they give me, it really tells me if they're really a passionate QA person or not, or maybe they're just doing it because it can really get really dreadful. So thank you for that comment. All right.
I think a good question to ask a potential QA employee, or a good thing to know about a potential QA employee, is if they were the kind of kid that liked to break things and tear apart their toys and figure out how they worked. Because I find that most of the time that's the individual mindset that does not get bored with trying to break things.
Yes. Was that Scott? Yes, I agree. Totally. Yeah, you gotta want to be able to break. If you're afraid of breaking things, I mean, how are you gonna be able to bring value to the team? Because they actually hire you and expect you to break stuff. That's actually a good comment. Trying to see, feel like you're doing a useful job. So you're curious about visual testing AI tool. Okay, so a couple of tools that are out there. I know. Appium tools has a lot of AI-based visual testing tools. I also know about a tools company called Mabel. So they also have a lot of visual testing AI tools as well. Those are the two that I know of. And somebody just told me about another one that I have not tried myself, so I cannot really talk about it. Alan said, did you measure the impact of AI-based automation on your overall quality? And if so, what did you measure? Okay, can you unmute and just ask the question? Maybe it will make more sense.
Yeah, I'm just curious, whether it's AI-based or automation in general, part of the ROI in my mind is how that impacts your overall quality, whether it's time to market and defects escaping into market. And I'm just curious if the projects that you've worked on, if you've measured that around the automation tools and how that's played into your understanding of ROI.
Yes. Okay. So good. I couldn't feed everything here. I have a whole presentation that I do on. Thank you for the question. I have a whole presentation that I do on KPI, and KPI specifically to automation. And one of the KPI, like you mentioned, is really the escape bug. So how many bugs did we? And not only escape bug in production, but how many bugs did we find from one environment to another, especially in the CI/CD. So I pay attention to bugs, and for me, as we're going down this way, there should be less bug, So I found bug in QA, that's okay. That's where you're supposed to find them. But I should be finding less bug in staging, in demo, and then definitely in production, And then I do some kind of like, what do you call it? A threshold, exactly, a threshold for my team, so they know how the application is really feeling as we going, because I don't want to wait at the end of the project to now be like, oh my God, this is a bad project. We have too many bugs. I want to know at any given time how we feeling as far as like, you already test maybe 50%, you know, based on the coverage and how many bugs are we finding. So that's giving me more data to really have that conversation with my team and understand, you know, the quality of the application. Because I mean, quality can become something that is a little bit subjective, you know, it's all about giving people confidence, right? But I like to use metrics around that as well. So I don't know if that answers your question. Somebody will mute themselves and is that you, Scott? Okay, let me read.
No, I had just unmuted. I was about to ask a question. You started talking, so I was going to let you speak.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm reading a question here, but maybe it's a comment. So go ahead.
No problem. What areas of most user interface QA testing do you think can benefit most from automation or from AI and automation? And that's kind of a broad topic, but I mean specifically, like, I know we have various levels of testing. So we have unit and integration level tests that are down closer to the code base. And as you bubble your way up, you start getting into the user interface. So there's a lot more fuzzy to it. Is there a point at which AI does and does not work best with the granularity of the type of tests that you're trying to implement? And if there is or isn't, is it based on the type of AI that is being used in that given area of test?
That's a hard question, but that's a good question. So I think Renee's is using API tools, so she can tell us a little bit more about visual application using. But I agree with you. And my background personally, I don't do a lot of GUI testing, let's call it that. You know, I don't do a lot of visual testing. My background is really embedded systems. So I came from like a really hardware engineering, and then coming to a little bit of a, so more back-end testing is really where I found joy into, you know. But I also know that for the past 3 or 4 years that I've been paying attention to the AI tools, you know, I see that it started out with just the visual part, right? The GUI one, the visual testing and HTML and the CSS and all the stuff happening on the screen. It's really where the value started, you know. And then the more, some of the tools that I've seen lately, they're really trying to do a little bit better job in the back end. Now, what engine are they using as far as like in the machine learning? Because machine learning is also about prediction, right? So the more the application is sitting there and learning about, application as the tool is learning about your application, it's really collecting enough data to be able to predict change in your application. So some of the application are really getting a lot smarter, but I don't think, you know, we are there yet where, you know, as far as like backend change, you know, it's going to be done with AI based tool. We are not there yet. I think, you know, if your application is a lot of visuals stuff, GUI, a lot of stuff on the screen, you know, AI will definitely give you a lot of bang for your buck, you know. But if it's a lot of backend testing, you're still gonna have to do a lot of your testing on your own. Now, is as far as like auto healing, it can still help you with that, because you're gonna have to create the test from the beginning, and then it can figure out, you know, as you maintaining the test in the long run, to building and learn more about your change in the application and respond faster. So that's how I see it.
Perfect, thanks. You actually hit on my next question, the auto healing. So you've covered that, but I appreciate the answer there.
Okay, thank you. So Renee, do you want to say something about API tool?
I thought, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it's actually I'm not a she, I'm a he, but
Oh,
it's
sorry,
okay.
sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. I don't know if
No,
why did I don't know, because
okay. It's
Renee
okay.
with double E is a she.
Yes,
Sorry, I apologize.
yes, it's fine. It's fine. So yeah, we used this Apply Tools application for visual validation for mobile apps in my company, but I thought you had mentioned it in the start, so that's why I was just asking and then just referring to this tool. but it seems to be quite powerful, and it does use some AI, which I haven't really gone much into detail, but it seems it's useful. It might be expensive, but it is quite powerful. But actually, Lisette, I had another question. Actually, so coming into AI, it could be like a learning curve. Is there any suggestion, like what type of training you suggest? Or I know there's bunch of AI or machine learning courses in the internet, and everyone is offering something, but what is your suggestion? Like what is the, like, a career path for somebody that wants to get into machine learning or AI?
That's a good question. Thank you. And again, I apologize for calling you a she.
Nah, it's no
So,
problem.
so what training, right? So like you mentioned, there's so many training out there, but I think it's good to start out just understanding what is AI. I think my advantage has been that I've always been curious about AI. So as soon as I hear a tool, I just gravitate toward that. So, but not everybody, have been an AI enthusiast or even interested in AI. And again, other people even have like some bad feeling about AI, right? Because I mean, the simple Alexa or the simple Siri on the phone can't even talk. Siri can't even understand me because of my, French accent. So I have that feeling as well. So I think basic training, first of all, is good. So you understand what the application is really trying to do using your AI. But I think each of those tool vendors, they provide you extensive training as well. Because one thing is to understand what the application is doing, right, using AI. So how AI work and all that. And I also had the privilege of working in a company before where they were doing AI development, so I know how AI development work as well from a application standpoint. You don't have to know all that to use the tool, but most of those tool vendor, and like you say, I have not seen a lot of tools that are using AI that are open source. Sadly, maybe as we go along furthermore in a couple of years, they might become a little bit more available for general public, cheaper, but most of them you have to pay for them. But some of them are not super expensive, because for the return that you're really getting, because I had to like go out there for my leadership and explain to them why, you want to spend all this $1,000 on a tool, right? But then it's also the return on investment. That's why I talk a lot about return on investment, because it is an investment, financial investment, but also investment from the team perspective to understand and learn the tool. So I will say that learn just LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn course a lot. There's a lot of free course over there on LinkedIn. I don't think you have to be the premium, but I think maybe you have to be premium. I think you have to be premium. So LinkedIn is there. I want to say YouTube, but I'm not too sure because YouTube can get really crowded. I'm sure there will be some basic AI course on YouTube, but that's where I will start. And then based on the tool that you pick, if it's Appium or other tools, they probably provide a lot of documentation for you. And then you just start small, and I think that should be good. Any other question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that I'm curious about is reports that I've seen in the news recently having to do with AI and how it is being it's self-training with a particular bias. In image recognition, I'd seen bias around how easily artificial intelligence was able to depict male and female, or color based on gender and things of that nature. Do you see there being a problem with artificial intelligence bias as tools are trying to learn our habits and behaviors from a web perspective?
Yes, totally. So it's funny because I'm going to be on a panel next month talking about diversity in testing and AI bias. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to see, I don't know what kind of question. So this is like a good warm-up question for that, right? But there's definitely a lot of bias, and at the end of the day, the AI is being trained by a human being, you know, it's been trained by us, application engineer, trying to train it, but there's still a lot of growing pain, you know, and there's a lot of research that have shown, that have came from Harvard, and there's a lady that I follow on LinkedIn. She's doing a lot of work on AI bias in minority, you know, where it's not able to find my face, for instance. I mean, Siri still cannot understand me, okay? My daughter will talk to Siri, she will get it faster than me. So that there's a problem there already. But I think where there's a hope for me is for us, diverse folks and different folks, using the tools to be able to train it, because the reason why the bias is there is because of who is using the tool, right? If it's just the typical male, white male engineer using it, they don't know my voice, right? They don't know my picture, they don't know my face, or maybe they're not thinking about it when they're doing that development. So we need a lot of diversity, kind of folks using the tools, doing those train tool to train the tools. And I don't know if that imparts too much of testing, because the way that AI is using in testing is really me, the engineer, the QA engineer, running the application, right? First of all, in a manual way, and then allowing the tool to get trained. So I feel like in that sense, if we can just fix who is behind the scene using the application, it's gonna help a little bit more. Because when I'm testing, I'm thinking different person, right? I'm thinking male, female, I'm thinking black, white, I'm thinking everybody, you know, I'm thinking in the diverse mind. Like if I'm testing an e-commerce site, I'm not just going to look for like a blue polo shirt. Funny enough, I'm wearing a blue polo shirt, but I'm gonna be looking for like a pink polo shirt, a different thing, you know, different size and all. So, and the application will also be learning. So that's how I see about it. I actually feel there's a little bit more hope, but the hope is really gonna be for us to be more diverse as a user of those AI based tools, to be able to allow it to get trained better.
One of the reasons I ask is because in feature-based testing, a lot of times there are roles that are considered. We'll take like an e-commerce site. There are roles that are being considered for, we need to pay specific attention in certain cases and certain test cases and feature flow-throughs to an individual whose focus is on a certain product set or a certain advertising set, things of that nature. A role for a white male user searching for tools might be a different test path than a black female user looking for other products.
Exactly.
So I'm curious if there are ways to utilize artificial intelligence and not specifically bias, but put an AI into a particular role such that they can manage and fulfill an exploratory testing case with that role in mind.
That's a good question. I have not played with that much, you know. I've not, because what I've always done was come up with my own scenario and just have the tool train to understand those scenario and fix if there's any change in the application, then the tool can adapt. But I don't expect the tools to just say, okay, male and then blue, and then the tools should come up with, you know, female, black, and all the other one. I still come up with all those scenarios from my perspective. And I just want him to realize that if there's any change, he can really tell me. But I'm sure that, you know, the floor is wide open, and there's still a lot of opportunity for that. And there's a lot of research happening in that as well. So I'm hopeful for sure that we'll get to that point. Totally. T-4 minutes. Okay. All right. So we are almost at the end. I'll be happy to answer a couple of other questions. And I want to make sure that we end on time. This question has been good so far. So I can answer one more question before we end. All right. I think that's about it. Thank you for joining today. You can I'm a lot on LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me an email. The cool thing is, like I was mentioned earlier, I'm gonna be presenting this same talk at the PNSQ and also DevOps East Conference in October and November. And I'm also gonna be on a panel to have a conversation about this as well. So Thank you for spending time with me today. I appreciate you all. Thank you for your time. Okay, thank you.
And want to thank you, Lisette, for a fascinating dive into artificial intelligence. We know that the robot overlords are coming, and we want to give them all the grace and deference possible. So it's good to know that we've got a starting place and professionals like Lisette here who understand AI more than I could. My droid above me thanks you for your time, and I want to appreciate everybody. And we will make an effort to be back again next month. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.